So, welcome everyone. I'm Alexander Michalcia, and today we have one of the industry leaders, Stefanie Lobnig, co-founder and CEO of Aquanzo. Welcome, Stefanie. How are you doing today?
Very good, thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Good. And I'm excited to have you on the podcast today also, and I'm sure you're going to be of great value for the audience. Now, before we dive in, could you give us a quick overview of what Aquanzo does?
Maybe I'll start from a bit of a different angle of my background, where I'm from and how I got there, because I think what Aquanzo does and where we are today also links to that, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So basically, I grew up on a small farm in Austria. So from very early on, I was surrounded by nature and animals, and a lot of the hands-on problem solving. Um, if something broke, basically we had to fix it, and that gave me from very on the mindset of always looking for solutions and asking how does nature work and how can we make it better. That curiosity kind of led me into process engineering, my studies, and I loved learning how the industry run, what's out there, and how can we potentially improve processes that are out there. And so in my studies, I came across alternative proteins already. And so I got to work with insects in Cape Town. So actually farming flies to produce a protein for animal feed. And that was kind of the turning point for me, because I realized that you can upcycle the waste that is lost on the farms, that is lost in the industries, and actually create something more valuable out of it. And I realized that could also shape the future of food. And also for me personally, it was also I was able to connect technology, sustainability, and also a potential something that could have a potential impact. And then from the farming, I moved to Dubai and then later London, and I got exposed to entrepreneurs and startups, and I saw people taking risks and building things from scratch, and kind of that clicked for me that I also wanted to do that. And so when my co-founder reached out to me and said, actually, I have something better than insect protein and insects, kind of like turned my area. And this was basically the clicking point of saying we can cultivate Artemia. Artemia is a tiny shrimp, or for if there are any US listeners, sea monkeys. And I kind of knew that was exactly the challenge I wanted to put my energy into. And this is where Aquanzo started, the company that we built to farm this better nutrient rich protein, which is called Artemia.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's very fascinating. And basically, what inspired you to focus on sustainable marine protein production?
I think the motivation really comes from two sides. On the one side, as I just explained, my roots, where I grew up close to the food production, and seeing how natural systems really can provide for us as long as we respect them. On the other side, my later life, living in bigger cities across the world, where so much food comes wrapped into plastic, which is ultra processed and often filled with ingredients that don't really nourish us. And on the other side, I've personally also struggled with food intolerances. So I know what it feels like when food makes you sick and don't really give you the energy that you need. And that experience pushed me to look much deeper, not just what's on my plate, but actually how the whole system works. How does the food system work? And that's when I discovered that the same problem also exists not just for the food system, but also what animals eat, the animals that we actually depend on. And we, just to give you a background, we're emptying our oceans to grind fish into fish meal and cutting down the rainforest just to plant more soy. So the system that's meant to nourish us is at the same time stripping the planet and also undermining our own health. So when I combine this personal experience with my roots in natural food production, the frustration with also what you can see on the food supermarket shelves, it was very clear to me that I want to look into the starting point of like what animals eat, and how that impacts also our own well-being. And so that's why I think ocean protein, especially the Artemia that we are growing, is so exciting to me. It's sustainable, it's very nutrient dense, and it fits seamlessly into the food chain. And because we farm it in a controlled way, we don't have to extract yet another resource from the wild and damage our planet. It's about creating these natural products that bring the food and the feed production back into balance, respecting nature while also using technology to make it scalable and reliable.
But for example, if you looking back, what would you wish you've done differently in those early days?
With Aquanzo or in my personal life?
Both sides.
What would I done differently? Maybe even start earlier, research more into the different areas that exist, what technologies are out there, and partner quicker with larger industries to help and accelerate the growth.
Okay, interesting. And you mentioned an interesting point there. So, for example, how are you transforming agriculture by product into high value marine ingredients?
I like to explain that in a very simple analogy.
Yeah,
Like as you think mushrooms became the burgers of today, like with no meat burgers, kombucha turned into a movement or turned tea into a movement. We use nutrients from the dairy industry and other food industries that are currently lost and turn them into this super Artemia, which is basically a tiny shrimp that is packed with nutrition. Our aim is simple. Like I said, we turn these nutrients that are lost because they're in liquids that can't be upcycled anymore. First to feed fish, then in the future pets, and eventually even people. Um, right now, to give you an example, the dairy industry and other food industries are losing massive amount of valuable nutrients because there's no way for them to actually upcycle them. It's too costly and it doesn't make any sense to transport liquids around. At the same time, our oceans are being, as I mentioned, pushed to the breaking point as we're pulling more and more out that we can't really can't recover from. With Aquanzo, we connect these two problems and turn it into a solution. So we are reimagining these lost nutrients and turning it almost in a sushi grade
right,
protein of the future.
right, interesting. And also, could you explain the process of farming zooplankton and artemia on the land?
So basically, we've built a system to grow these Artemia on nutrient-rich leftovers from, like I mentioned, the farming or the food production, especially currently focusing on the dairy, all on land in a safe and modular setup. So you can scale it easily. Our closed platform combines carefully selected Artemia, so we know which ones we're using, with AI driven cultivation. So by using these nutrients that would otherwise go to waste, we link these two industries with new technology to observe and monitor the process.
Okay, interesting. And for example, what role does state of art technology play in your sustainable protein production?
I would say technology is at the heart of how we make this work. Um, our production is to be designed both on the first hand smart and safe, because sensors and vision systems constantly watch over the Artemia and how the tanks and how the system is doing. And on the other hand, AI is helping us to keep the system stable, but also understand the data better and link bridges that we haven't seen yet. And so that allows us to deliver the same high quality protein kind of anywhere in the world in a clean and biosecure way.
Okay. And for example, how are you addressing the sevenfold increase in demand for the marine proteins?
We kind of know that no single solution can fill the gap, so it's a whole portfolio of proteins that will need to come in to basically bridge that gap. Our role we see as we're the ocean taste of these
Yeah.
nutrients. So basically, protein and lipids that fish and pets and ultimately humans need, but farmed in a sustainable way, with again the taste or and certain nutrients that are given in marine and ocean species, compared to a land farmed protein, for instance. And we know, like, long term, we need to farm our food, rather than over extract from the oceans and from the land. But we see us as really the taste, the flavor, with certain nutrients that are only given in ocean proteins.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. And now, walk us through how Aquanzo addresses these challenges. What makes your approach unique compared to traditional aquaculture solutions?
So I would say from the very beginning on, we've built Aquanzo to be very data driven. As I mentioned, we use sensors, AI, and very tailored feed recipes to optimize every stage of the cultivation. And that makes our system very predictable and scalable, and also adaptable to different conditions. So we are very open to collaborations. As I mentioned, we need basically the waste from the food industry,
Yeah.
and but also very open to new technologies from the very early on, because we know, if we want to build something, the food, or bridge the gap of the food system, this, like, technology is key and
Okay.
cannot be done by only one company alone.
Right, makes sense. But for example, I have a curiosity by then. So, how do you maintain your optimal nutrition while reducing the environmental impact?
Very good question. Artemia are filter feeders, so they're not really picky on what they eat. So as long as the particle size is small enough, and we're talking micron size, they will filter it out. So, and because we farm Artemia in a closed and biosecure system, we don't extract anything from the ocean. We feed them nutrients that would otherwise be wasted, and this reduces the environmental burden of dairies and, like I said, other food industries, while producing a protein that's rich and digestible. So we're really upcycling it into an ocean or marine protein. So we add actually the nutrition to a food chain without taking away from any natural resources.
Okay, I see. And what's been key to scaling from prototypes to the real world trials?
That's a good one. Honesty, or honestly, persistence and passion, I think. Me personally, I've heard the hard way that in biology, things go much quicker wrong than an engineer expects and likes. Biology is much harder to predict than a calculation in engineering. So colony crashes just happen when you need the results or the product for a trial the most sometimes. And we basically had to go through that phases of overcoming, like, these situations. And again, with technology and the persistence of the team, really helped us go through it. The team has a never give up mindset and a real research talent to plug certain things that just don't work out together. And we've been pushing through setbacks, learning from every failure. Again, this is nothing new, but it's really going through that and slowly building the prototypes, or from prototypes to paid trials, with global partners, and learning from what have you done yesterday wrong to what will help us tomorrow. So I would
Right.
say resilience is key, same as, yeah, persistence and the passion of the team.
Okay, and basically from that expansion, how has your transition from CTO to CEO shaped your vision for Aquanzo?
So as the CTO, I was mainly focused on the technology and the team, so making sure that the process worked. Stepping into the CEO role shifted my perspective. Now I'm much more thinking about the market, about customers. Not that I wasn't before, but like now this has been much more focused and central for me. And how the technology connects with farmers, the dairies, the feed companies, and eventually also consumers. And thinking about it more and more and being more involved is it made me realize how big the opportunity really is. Artemia has been used in aquaculture for decades, so it's nothing new. But also in places like Bangladesh or in other countries, there are even recipes where it is eaten directly by humans. So, what really excites me is the bigger picture. So, it's not just really just one experiment for one market group. It can be a global shift because we're thinking about very nutrient rich proteins or products. Because if we can start feeding fish and then pets and prove it's safe and also it's nutrient rich and it can be grown sustainably in large quantities, then moving to a human food is really the next step. If you think about younger generations, they're already demanding better proteins, healthier, lower impact. It's all about traceability. And I think Artemia can really deliver on these three. It can start as a solution for fish hatcheries, then move into pet, but can also become, in my opinion, a mainstream part of our diets. Same as we've done with, I mentioned that before, sushi or potentially quinoa moved from like we didn't know about it to now being everywhere.
Right, right, 100%. And you mentioned about the clients, and I often find that innovative solutions face the initial skepticism. And for example, when you talk to potential clients, what's the biggest misconception they typically have about what you do?
The biggest misconception is about scaling and just being another protein. Um, I think we needed to show what the product is and what the product can do, and also that we can produce the product. So we're also focused from the beginning on showing the client the product, on showing the results that we're getting from the product, from fish trials and chicken trials, and partnering up. But it's basically giving the client the product in their hand, and also show how we can collaborate together. I think lesson or a big lesson from what I've learned and seen from different industries is to not collaborate. I think the market is too big and too important to tackle or try to tackle it alone. I think developing the product together and doing it within a partnership is really essential.
Okay, makes sense. And for example, what was your first major success story with a client and what changed for them after working with you?
So we are in the process of putting our product to market. The real success stories we had so far were with upcycling the nutrients. So we were working with distilleries, malt producers, and also dairy industries. And I think our and their biggest success story was to see that the Artemia thrive on the products, not 100% on the products, but that adding a portion of their byproducts will upcycle these wasted nutrients into an ocean protein.
Okay, makes sense. And now, looking at the broader industry, what key trends are you seeing emerge?
What trends? Key
Yeah,
trends?
yeah.
Um, I think it's similar to what we have seen in the insect and algae industry, that there are a handful of players, and in a novel protein, there are, like, it started with the insects, you had first 3, 5, 10, 20, 50, and eventually hundreds of these players. And then eventually it becomes mainstream. So I think similar with Artemia or other products, like there is precision fermentation, like a lot of different angles of proteins and industries evolving. Like I mentioned before, like there's space, so much space for all these solutions to thrive. But there's, yeah, one is starting and it's very easy and snowballing for others to come next. So I see that basically multiple different products will thrive in the years to come.
Okay. And I having worked with numerous businesses in the space, and I've noticed some common pitfalls. So, in your opinion, what mistakes do you see companies making when trying to tackle these challenges?
I think I touched on this a bit earlier already, is technology first for a lot of the companies. I think technology is very important, but product is more important. Like putting the product out and validating it with potential partners and the customers is key. And with that validation comes the partnership. As I mentioned, I think we are too small. Like a lot of the companies are too small to do it on their own. So it's really key to collaborate. Key to collaborate with in technology, but also um, in the scaling of like building and operating these farms and technologies.
Yeah, makes sense. And it sounds like you're ahead of the curve in many ways, which make me curious about your growth plans. So, how are you looking to grow for the next year?
Step one for us at the moment is building these long-term collaborations and partnerships with the food industry, so dairies and distilleries, and like liquid nutrient producers, so that we can really secure the side stream and also the infrastructure around building the partnerships to scale. Step two is supplying the products that we're producing to hatcheries who already know what an Artemia is. So it's an easy entrance into that market. And then step three is pet food, once we've proven that we can scale and produce consistently. And finally, as I mentioned, my long term vision is going into human nutrition in partnership with these food companies that we are starting the relationship now. Once the regulatory path is open to move into.
Okay. And also, is AI on top of your mind to integrate in your business for the future expansion?
Is AI in the expansion?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm really excited about sensors, cameras, and also AI because they let us collect and analyze the data really in real time. So making the cultivation more reliable and also efficient. So yeah, I'm really on, or we as a company are really focused also on understanding our data with AI and machine learning to see how we can put these puzzles together. To give an example, there are hundreds of papers out there who are talking about artemia production, and with our system we basically can analyze across not just our data but also all the papers that are out there in order to make the data and the know-how more wider.
Okay, interesting. But for example, if I give you an extra $1 million right now for growth, where would you allocate it?
Into scaling the system, I think for us the next big thing is scaling it to produce the product, um, as I mentioned, with the partners, but also put the product, more of our product. We were focusing on product production in the beginning, then build the technology around it, and now the next phase is really scaling to produce more of the product out, so customers that show the interest and are very excited about the product can actually use it.
Okay, I see. And before you wrap up, I'm curious about what's on the horizon. So when you look at a Aquanzo journey over the next few years, what possibilities excite you the most?
Um, the scale and the potential of it. Like, if we want to feed 9 billion people, we need proteins that are nutrient rich and sustainable. and don't destroy like oceans, forest that we depend on. So really the scale that we can put in developing new technologies to also be put a protein out that is built on a vision to do something good for our planet.
Yeah. Okay. And for listeners who want to learn more or potentially work with Aquanzo, what's the best way to get in touch?
The best way is go on our website, aquanzo.com, and submit a form or get in touch with me directly over my email address, which you can also find on the website.
Okay, perfect. So thanks for tuning in today, Stephanie, and for this amazing podcast session. And for anyone listening, make sure to check out the Quanzo socials below in the description because this episode was packed with value and I can't wait to see what you build next.
Thank you very much.
Great, see you in the next episode.